What's up? What's up? I'm Dr. Omatma, host of Egg Meet Sperm, where we're busting fertility myths, sharing tangible tips for your fertility journey, and bringing you the most knowledgeable guests to support your journey to parenthood. This podcast is for both women and men because getting fertile as fuck is for both partners, don't you think? Remember, just listening to this podcast won't get you pregnant, but following the tips we share just may. Let's get you fertile AF so that you can co-create the family you dream of. And if your partner's not listening to this, make sure to share this episode with your partner. Hello and welcome to Egg Meet Sperm. And our guest today is one of my favorite people in the entire world. Her name is Chana Ross, and she is a passionate women's health advocate. She is a clinic director and pelvic health physiotherapist at Vital Physiotherapy and Wellness, a women's health and pelvic health physiotherapy clinic in midtown Toronto. Chana lives to empower her team, colleagues, and clients by coaching, mentoring, and educating them to provide excellent care and live the lives of their dreams. Chana provides prenatal and postpartum physiotherapy as well as rehabilitation for all forms of pelvic pain and dysfunction. She is a sought-after educator and teacher and regularly speaks about pelvic health, prenatal preparation, and realities of parenthood, and loves to empower clients to take the lead in their health and lifestyle. Most recently, Chana is using her expertise in the realm of virtual physiotherapy care to coach and empower manual health practitioners on how to provide exceptional virtual care to clients. Hi, Chana. Welcome.
I just have to say the feelings are mutual.
Well, it's great because, honestly, you guys, I just love having a podcast so I can hang out with the coolest people in the world. But Chana and I, every time we get together, we just want to talk and talk and talk. So we're going to rein this in. We're going to keep it relatively concise, but there's a lot to talk about. And pelvic physio is just such an interesting field because obviously, we do some physical stuff, but it's not what you guys do, right? So can you just tell us a little bit about pelvic physio, what it is? And then I want to dive deeper into the pelvic floor and all of that kind of stuff so that we can just empower people to bring this into their lives in a more active way.
So first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to nerd out on all things physiotherapy here. I am located in Canada and we call it physiotherapy here. In the States, it's called physical therapy, but pelvic health physiotherapists I like to say we're the gynecologists of physiotherapists. We are regularly trained physical therapists. We work with muscles and tissues and tendons and ligaments and the pain system and the nervous system. But a pelvic health physio is somebody who has specialized training to assess internally, vaginally, and rectally. And we treat a whole host of pelvic health concerns. But when we're talking about the pelvic floor specifically, it has 5 major roles. And whenever the muscles are not performing these roles, then we manage, we train, we support clients when those systems are not working. So the 5 jobs are sexual health. So healthy sexual function, these muscles are really, really important in maintaining healthy sexual function, ensuring that you can orgasm, ensuring that you have no pain with sex or penetration, ensuring that these muscles respond properly. The pelvic floor muscles are 3 layers of muscles. They go from the front of the pelvis all the way to the coccyx in the back, to your tailbone, and side to side from one sits bone to another. So if you are sitting right now, you are sitting on those muscles. And for people with vaginas, for women, there's actually 3 orifices. There's a urethra where your pee comes out of, your vagina, and your anus. Those orifices are muscular. So if the muscles are weak, you'll have lack of sensation or inability to orgasm during sexual play. And if those muscles are too tight, A lot of women have like inability to have experience penetration or pain with sex, pain with orgasm, pain in and around the vulva. All of those symptoms are signs that the nervous system and the pelvic floor need a little time, attention, and love. The second job of those muscles is to hold in urine, hold in feces, to hold in gas. If you're leaking urine, leaking feces, if you're constipated, if there's a lot of my clients come in and they're like, okay, I'm farting too much. Like, no, farting's normal, but can you hold it in and go to the other room? That's the question we want to know. Do you have some control? Not do you have gas? Because everybody has gas. That's one of the most common questions that I get. But if you're leaking urine, when you're coughing, sneezing, jumping, even if your bladder is full and you're really laughing and somebody pushes you from behind while you're jumping on a trampoline, you still shouldn't leak urine or feces. And you still should be able to sit on a toilet and release fully your urine and your feces when you desire to. The third job of the pelvic floor. So far we've got sexual function, sphincteric function, holding in those two bodily functions. These muscles also help as a sump pump. They pump blood back up to your heart. Your heart's a very large muscle, pumps out blood to your entire body. There's no one single muscle that pumps it back to your heart. There are two muscles in our body that have a little bit more of a little oomph when they're pumping in and around our veins. Veins course through every muscle in our body. So every time you do a bicep curl, you're actually helping pump blood back to your heart. Our pelvic floor and our calf muscles have a little bit more oomph. When they're working effectively, they help really return the blood from our lower extremities back up to our heart. The fourth job of those muscles is to hold up all of your organs, to hold up your bladder, to hold up your uterus, to hold up your rectum. Your rectum is connected to your intestines, your gallbladder, your spleen. All those muscles are held up and below by your pelvic floor muscles. So any sort of dissent, any feelings that things aren't where they should be is a sign that you could use the support of a pelvic floor physio. And last but not least, and this is my favorite job of the pelvic floor, our pelvic floor is part of our inner core unit. So a lot of people, when you say pelvic floor, they are like, I'm Kegling. And I'm like, okay, you should really stop. Number one, Kegling is the equivalent of just trying to do a grip, trying to hold something with your hand and just working on your thumb strength. Because your pelvic floor works together as a system with your inner abdominal muscles, your breathing diaphragm, and your inner back muscles. They work as an inner core unit. So when you take a diaphragmatic breath in, your diaphragm should descend down into your abdominal cavity so your lungs can take in more air. And when it does that, it pushes all your abdominal contents down and your pelvic floor should actually relax on an inhale. And as you exhale, your diaphragm springs back up because all the air is out of those lungs. All the abdominal contents sort of lift up and your pelvic floor should gently engage, it should contract. And your abdominal muscles should do the same. They should relax on the inhale and they should engage slightly on the exhale.
This is good. So yes, I was just doing this as you're talking.
Most people do it the opposite. Or they walk around all day gripping their abs or Kegling. And what we're doing is we're losing out on it. Muscles are very complex. You wouldn't just walk around doing bicep curls all day, right? They work together with the triceps. These muscles need to be both strong. Strong is important. They need to be flexible. They need to be coordinated. They need to work at the right time. If you sneeze and then Kegel, you're going to leak. It's not because those muscles aren't working. It's because they turned on at the wrong time. And they also have to work with their systems, with their friends, with the muscles that they work in coordination with.
Yeah.
It's a very long answer.
No, this is good. This is good. So you've said so much, and I feel like that was a really great download for some of us that didn't learn this in school, which is so common, right? So
yeah. I feel like I talk about this all the time, and then all of my clients still come in and say, like, nobody told me this. I'm like, but I was just speaking yesterday. You didn't hear me? No, they don't all listen to me. That's shocking.
Yeah, it's often like we're repeating the same thing over and over again.
Yeah,
like
it's equally important each time.
Probably a few hundred times what lab tests people need to do, and I still get DMs every single day. What lab test do I need?
Yes.
So yes, I totally understand. But I think that there is so much that our pelvic floor is doing. And I think that what you said about this breath, because since we're focused on fertility, I'm often suggesting for people to like take that breath and like bring it all the way into their pelvis to like where they can feel it. Can you explain to me how you as a physiotherapist would do this? Because I'm not trained in anything. I'm just let's just be aware that our breath is flowing all the way down,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
is there something else more technical that we could
Oh
be
my
doing?
gosh. Let me dive in. So, first of all, so many people have been taught that there's a lot of shame in and around their genitals, their vulva, their pelvis. And so, when we speak about pelvic physio, where I mentioned that the pelvic floor, the only real motor planning that people have in their brain is to actually activate those muscles. So, a lot of the time, if I say inhale, relax your pelvic floor, when I'm assessing internally, because that's one of the things that pelvic floor physios can do, what I find is a lot of women are actually engaging their pelvic floor muscles. They're contracting when they think that they're relaxing. Or when they think that they're contracting, they're squeezing other muscles and they're not contracting these muscles because we just don't have the motor map because we've been so ashamed of this area, we've actually ignored it.
Yeah, that's so
So,
true.
right? So, a huge piece of the work that we do is biofeedback, actually learning what does it feel like in your body to inhale? What does it feel like in your body to do this diaphragmatic breath? And if we're really aligned, ribs over pelvis, we can find what I call the easy breath. If you're in a posture where you're slumped and your pelvis is tucked under and your ribs are behind your pelvis, which is sort of a position that so many of us hang out in so often, or you're walking around gripping your abs all day, what actually happens is people try to take in a deep breath. They go, right? And it's not a diaphragmatic breath. A diaphragmatic breath should be where your ribs are stacked over your pelvis, where our weight is in the middle of our feet, where we're sitting on our sits bones. There should be a slight anterior pelvic tilt in our pelvis.
Like a tilt forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we should be sitting on our sits bones, not sitting on our tailbone. And what I find is if we can get people aligned properly and get them to slow the fuck down and not take this deep breath in, what we're actually doing is just setting them up for success. And it just becomes an easily slow, gentle breath. Versus if I say breathe into your pelvis, pelvis cues giggle and they right away start to contract, which means a tucked under pelvis for many people, which makes breathing even more challenging. The other piece of this is that so many of the clients that I work with are in this persistent upregulated nervous system state. And what happens when we're in this fight or flight, right? Your brain thinks doesn't matter. Our brain right now doesn't understand the difference between running away from a tiger or somebody cutting us off in traffic or somebody who sends like a nasty email or gets into our DMs and is like said something rude to us. Our brain just goes into that fight or flight. And what happens when we go into fight or flight is we get into this upper chest breathing. And so part of the systemic approach, the holistic approach to addressing pelvic health is we have to start to bring our nervous system into that rest and relax so that we can take this diaphragmatic breath. It's almost this catch-22. We need to learn how to diaphragmatically breathe, and we also need to slow down enough to be able to diaphragmatically breathe. So a lot of clients get really frustrated because we're doing these slow, gentle breaths in alignment in the easiest breath possible. And it still takes them 3, 4, 5 breaths to get to that slow and gentle breath. And they feel frustrated in those first 5. I'm doing it wrong. I'm doing it wrong. I'm doing it wrong. And I'm like, no, actually, our system just needs some time to get to that slow state. You're slowing down, but you're not slow yet.
Yeah, I feel like it's hard for people to shift out of this like fight or flight into this more relaxed state. But for fertility, that's exactly what we need to do. It's
For pelvic floor health too.
Yeah, so like to bring it all the way into the pelvis is really important. It's not just like a heady relaxation. And this
Right.
is why I feel like just go and relax, go on vacation. Sure, that works for some people, but you're not actually relaxed enough to get into this like body relaxation state. Your body might still be in this like tense mode, even though you're on vacation. So
totally. And an additional piece, which I always find fascinating and tends to be true in the type A perfectionisty type clients that I work with, because I think that we work with ourselves very often. Like we tend to be our own. The things that I was dealing with a couple of years ago are the things that I see in my clients now. And it gives us insight and ability to support our clients. But when we're in this fight or flight, when you're running away from a tiger, it actually doesn't make sense to just like hop into the bushes and have a quickie with your honey. And it doesn't make sense to like, I just need a pee break, or you know what, I'm feeling the urge to move my bowels right now. I need to stop running away from the tiger and go move my bowels. So what actually happens is that when you're in fight or flight, your pelvic floor actually responsively goes into a contracted state. So not only do we need to do this breath work, we need to find a way to cue those muscles to relax on the inhale, because your homeostatic state, if you're in a persistent fight or flight type experience, is to be contracted all the time.
So how do we do this? And obviously, like, work with a pelvic physio
Yeah, let's go get
person.
assessed. But we start with like nervous system calming techniques. And that could mean just every time you go to the bathroom, while you're washing your hands, get into some alignment and take 5 to 10 slow, gentle breaths. Usually means, like, I like to talk about this frenzy state. A lot of my clients get into a frenzy state. We're like, I gotta get it all done. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, can we start to be aware of our energy? Can we start to be aware of the energy we're using and we're choosing to use when we're going through our lives? Not everything has to be done, but for many people, they do have a lot of things that have to get done, but they don't have to be frantic while they're doing them. But also like starting to map out your pelvic floor, like doing things like sitting on an exercise ball and actually closing your eyes and starting to feel when you inhale, can you feel your pelvic floor relaxing? We use really, because anytime you say relax your pelvic floor, most people will giggle. We have a whole host of visualizations that we use. One of my favorites is on the inhale, visualizing a flower blooming down and out of your vagina or your anus. And then on the exhale, visualizing that flower just sitting there. So not going back up on the inhale and then out on the exhale, but actually just allowing that more rested state to become your natural homeostatic state. The other piece is really taking a look at, am I evoking the relaxation response throughout the day? So the breathing is great because every muscle is meant to both contract and relax. In the pelvic floor, we've only been taught to contract a lot, right? So understanding that we have to take it through full range of motion, the same way that we would take your hamstrings. If you're a runner, you're going to stretch your hamstrings and you're going to strengthen them, right? You're going to stretch your quads and you're going to strengthen them. But knowing that nervous system response, if you're in that fight or flight, there is going to be a whole nervous system response with the cortisol, with our heart rate, plus our pelvic floor. Can we evoke the relaxation response specifically throughout the day? And that's not saying people just relax, right? Let's go on vacation. We're doing things like, can we engage in some Qigong or some restorative yoga, or the gentle breathing is more, I think, about the range of motion of the pelvic floor, the inhaling, the relaxing pieces. But then we also, does meditation speak to you? And it doesn't have to be a 40-minute meditation session, but can we start to engage in more restorative choices throughout the day? It starts to get people into a experience where they're like, oh, okay, my life can still happen and I don't have to be frantic all the time. If we perpetuate that consistent, like upregulated state, it's actually really hard to address the pelvic floor muscles. A lot of clients are like, release my pelvic floor muscles, the same way that we release other tight muscles. They're like, I could, but then like your email is going to go off. You're going to get notifications on your phone. And all of a sudden it's going to like, zoop, back up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So can we start to find some coping skills so that even though we know that with that nervous system, there is going to be some activation, that you have the ability to actively move back into homeostasis afterwards.
And so, okay, I hear that there's this like holistic approach. It's not just about the pelvic floor. It's literally like your nervous system, how you're in your life, what triggers you. Understanding.
And there's exercises. We're doing lots of like physical exercises and nervous system mapping stuff too.
Okay, cool.
But those are specific to each client.
Cool. Yeah, right. I'm curious if, and this is like kind of a debated thing, so I'm curious just to get your opinion on it. What do you think about yoni eggs? Have you heard of them, used them, like them, don't like them?
So I think it perpetuates this idea that, number one, that your vagina needs to be on all the time. and that tighter is better. Our vagina is made to contract and relax. It's designed to do that. It's designed to expand. And so I always say, like, a body is made to change over time. So this idea that a tighter vagina is better is not necessarily true. And it leads us further down this in the direction of tightening all the time, which leads us to more pain, dysfunction, leaking, all of those things. Because again, a muscle's job is not just to be strong. It needs to be strong. It needs to be flexible. It needs to be coordinated. It needs to have the right timing. So your pelvic floor muscles shouldn't be on all day. They should turn on when they need to be and relax when they need to be. The same way that when you're chewing, your jaw shouldn't be clenched all day long. It needs to be able to clench and relax. By the way, lots and lots of connections between the jaw.
Oh, I was just thinking that. Yes. I'm like, if your jaw is clenched, your pelvis is probably clenched.
Yeah. But it perpetuates this concept that your pelvic floor should be tight, 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 kegel, 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 kegel. And most of us, again, live in this world where we are on all day long. You're probably getting gold stars on the strength side. If you're experiencing any symptoms, it's likely not that you're weak. It's likely that all these other things that these muscles need to do are not being addressed.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your amazing explanation of the pelvic floor and what all is like. The interconnections, I think, are always fascinating and amazing. We will have your info in our show notes. Is there anything you would like to share with our audience that they should really, really, really know before we end our call today?
Yes. Okay. Are you ready?
Yes.
I feel like the medical system spends a lot of time talking to us about how we're broken and need to be fixed. And a lot of the clients that come in to see me come in with the experience of being broken wherever they are in their life, that they weren't made right, and therefore their pelvic floor isn't working well. And what I want to tell people is, even in educating women and clients about pelvic floor physio, there's a lot of rhetoric around like, this is normal and you're not normal. And I just want to say that wherever you're at, you are whole, perfect, and complete. You just might need a little support or might benefit from a little bit of support.
Yeah, I love that message. Thank you so much for reinforcing it. I think that we can't hear it enough, especially as women. So I appreciate that.
I appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been so great chatting with you. And for those of you listening in, don't forget to tune in for all of Hannah's amazing tips that are going to be coming up. I will see you all soon. Thanks for being with us.
Was that an amazing episode or what? Make sure to check our show notes so that you can link up with our guests. And if you're not a part of our secret Fertile AF community, you can join for free via the link in our show notes. Last but not least, have you showed us some love lately? It would mean the world to us if you could share and review our podcast. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time on Egg Meets Sperm. Peace.